Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Game-Based Learning in the World Language Classroom. The why, what, and how. We are still talking about why to use games in your classroom. I'm Madame Sensei. I teach Spanish, French, and Japanese to high schoolers out here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. I can be reached at studio-nemo.com or the Minecraft Education Ambassadors or the Minecraft Teachers Lounge or the Duolingo Educators Network, where I love to talk to people about developing games and get ideas from you all and bounce ideas off of you. We're still talking about Hattie effect sizes. We have one more after this because I broke them down so that we're like 10 minutes per episode. The Hattie effect sizes are super easy to get to when you're using a game-based approach. Today we're talking about learning goals versus no goals. Hattie effect size 0.68. Simply put, you tell the students why you chose this particular game to help them work on this particular skill. It's that easy. Bam, you hit that effect size. Problem-solving teaching has a Hattie effect size of 0.68. Lots and lots and lots of problem-solving situations abound in games and puzzles. Not only are you going to be explicitly teaching strategies for how to play the game, there are a lot of experimentation and intrinsic discovery for the problem-solving inherent in the game. But you're also going to be sheltering and scaffolding the language in the early stages, so you're going to use your superpowers of prediction to warn the students to look out for what they might be tripped up by. We talked about il est versus il a. But there's so much problem solving in games, so that's how you win the game. Outlining and transforming is the Hattie effect size of 0.66. Well, your hope is that after you've given the students the scaffolding of the sentence frames, and then you gradually remove the scaffolding, and the students actually become more and more creative with the language. I believe a good game lends itself to this. When students get comfortable with the game, they start trying to game the system, right? They're going to bump up against the rules and see what they can get away with. This is going to involve language use. They have to be comfortable with red card is green card before they can say, my red card is more green card than Bob's. You should have chosen mine. I can't believe the injustice. I've actually heard my students shouting that in the target language at each other as I work the room. Absolutely wonderful. Hattie effect size 0.66. Concept mapping we talked about a little bit. Hattie effect size 0.64. You could turn any concept map into a game board. Or rather, I should say, you can have your students turn their concept maps into game boards. I showed an example here with a previous episode, since concept mapping is under the umbrella of strategies to integrate with prior knowledge. But that's Hattie effect size 0.64 explicitly here. Vocabulary programs, Hattie effect size 0.62. Basically, the games that you choose should be to target specific vocabulary and apply that vocabulary in an authentic manner. There you go. You got that Hattie effect size too. Creativity programs, Hattie effect size 0.62. Okay, here I'm going to explain a little bit what Hattie had in mind. He talks about some designer programs. Okay, so designer in a pedagogical sense means that somebody or some small group sat down and designed the program, as opposed to hundreds of years of organic teaching, and this is how we've evolved to teach it. All right, so all of the designer creativity programs listed in this Hattie effect size, they're attempting to target the students' divergent thinking abilities. While playing a game, players cannot help but be flexible in their responses. They can't help but be original in their responses, and they can't help but be pushed to elaborate on their responses. It is the perfect marriage of creativity and application and practice. So I believe we hit the creativity program's Hattie effect size of 0.62. Behavioral intervention programs. This has a Hattie effect size of 0.62 also. For students with IEPs, I've talked about how the differentiation is baked right into the game. I only ever had one time where a student with a behavioral modification plan, BMP, he stormed out of the classroom after a game. I was so proud of him for self-regulating enough to leave the classroom instead of melting down in front of his peers. And I credit the fact that he realized that everyone else was enjoying the game and that he was the outlier in this case. And I have to tell you, this kid was a total teddy bear. I had been warned before school began that he had a dangerously violent temper. This was the only time in 3 years of teaching this kid that I ever saw why he would have a behavioral modification plan, because I didn't see any reason for it. He was such a teddy bear. He had problems in other classes. This was his only glitch in mine, and it was just a glitch. He simply got up and he stormed out the door. When he calmed down, his peers happily welcomed him back as if nothing happened. Okay? And I'm going to credit games for this, okay? Because he was having fun in the classroom. I wasn't trying to control him, or at least not overtly control him, because I was trying to control him in the context of a game. And that, spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. He was a great kid. I also spoke about in an earlier episode a student who had social anxiety so bad that she absolutely refused to speak aloud. I only heard her ever talk once because I called her parents in so that I could help brainstorm ways to get her over her social anxiety. And she did talk to her parents very, very quietly. But she had social anxiety so badly. I had to do a lot of specialized differentiation for her, but she never sat out of a game. She just had to play it differently. So games can help you do that. And for the record, this is kind of where I'm coming from. I spent one summer assisting in a classroom of 9 students, middle school students, who were not verbal. They had not acquired language yet, any language whatsoever, because the district was woefully short on paraeducators. And so I volunteered. I'm like, I think I can do this. None of these students had acquired language. Most of them could say no. That was their only word that they had. Okay, so the only way to elicit responses from them was through games and songs. Even their technology. One student had a computer it's called an eye gaze. Okay, so it was configured to track her eye movement because she couldn't type. And it used games to teach her how to use the application. Okay, so here's like a screenshot of the menu for it. Okay, so she'd have to look at this, and then she'd get to these games, and that would teach her the cause and effect of using a computer so that she could start communicating with it. For the students who were able to use their hands, many of the games on the computers were point and click. And if you're wondering what other games the middle schoolers responded to, well, we had these shoe boxes that we had we'd cut a hole for the mouth and we'd glued eyes on it. And the students just loved games where I'd sit with them and I'd hand them the plastic food and I'd say, oh, he's hungry. Give him the lettuce. Oh, good. He likes the lettuce. They loved sorting games. They loved catching games, matching games, puzzles. Oh, they absolutely love puzzles. And of course, singing and dancing. They really loved. In our next episode, final episode, I promise you, for Hattie effect sizes, because then we get down to the magical 0.6. Below 0.6, man, it's not worth your effort because we've got bigger things we can do to make more of an impact on our students. Hope to see you there.